The book of Joshua, chapter 10. Now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, and he had done to Jericho and its king. So he had done to Ai and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gideon had made peace with Israel, and were among them. They that feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. Therefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Homhom, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Jarmuth, Japhiah, king of Lachish, and Labrin, king of Eglon, saying, Come up to me and help me, that we may attack Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites and the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebrew and the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish and the king of Eglon gathered together and went up, they and all their armies, and camped there before Gibeon and made war against them. And then the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua at the camp at Gilgal, saying, Do not forsake your servants. Come up to us quickly. Save us and help us. For all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the mountains have gathered together against us. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of the war with him, and the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said to Joshua, Do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hand. Not a man of them shall stand before you. Joshua therefore came upon them suddenly, having marched all night from Gilgal. So the Lord routed them before Israel, killed them with a great slaughter of Gibeon, chased them along the road that goes to Beth Horon, and struck them down as far as Azekah and Makutha. And it happened as they fled before Israel and were on the descent of Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down large hailstones from heaven on them, and as far as Zekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than the children of Israel killed with the sword. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still over Gideon, and moon in the valley of Aljalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, until the people had revenge upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jashir? So the sun stood still in the midst of the heaven, and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. And there has been no day like that, before it or after it, that the Lord heeded the voice of the man, for the Lord fought for Israel. And then Joshua returned, and all of Israel with him, to the camp of Gilgal. But these 5 kings had fled and hidden themselves in a cave at Makkedah. And it was told Joshua, saying, The 5 kings have been found and hidden in the cave at Makkedah. And so Joshua said, Roll large stones against the mouth of the cave, and set men by it to guard them. And do not say, They're yourselves, but pursue your enemies, and attack their rear yard. Do not allow them to enter the cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hand. Then it happened, while Joshua and the children of Israel made an end of slaying them with a very great slaughter, till they had finished, that those who escaped entered fortified cities. And all the people returned to the camp to Joshua at Makkedah in peace. No one moved his tongue against any of the children of Israel. And then Joshua said, Open the mouth of the cave, and bring out those 5 kings to me from the cave. And they did so, and brought out those 5 kings to him for the cave, and the king of Jerusalem, and the king of Hebron, and the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. So it was, when they brought out those kings to Joshua, that Joshua called for all the men of Israel, and said to the captains of the men of war who went with him, Come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings. And they drew near and put their feet on their necks. And then Joshua said to them, Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for thus the Lord will to all of your enemies against your fight. And afterward, Joshua then struck them and killed them and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging on the trees until evening. So it was at that time of the going down of the sun that Joshua commanded, and they took to them down to the trees and cast them into the cave where they had been hidden, and laid large stones against the cave's mouth, which remained until this very day. And on that day Joshua took Makkedah and struck it and its king with the edge of the sword, and he utterly destroyed them all, the people who were with it. He let none remain. He also did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua passed from Makkedah and all of Israel with him to Lebnah, and they fought against Lebnah. And the Lord also delivered it and its king into the hand of Israel. He struck it and all the people who were in it, and with the edge of the sword he let none remain in it, but did to its kings as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua passed from Lebnah and all of Israel with him to Lachish, and they encamped against it and fought against it. And then the Lord delivered Lachish into the hand of in the hand of Israel, who took it on the second day and struck it and all of the people who were in it with the edge of the sword, according to all that had done in Lebnah. Then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua struck him and his people until he left none remaining. From Lachish, Joshua passed to Eglon and all of Israel with him, and they had encamped against it and fought against it. And they took it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword, and all the people who were in it utterly destroyed that day, according to all he had done to Lachish. So Joshua went up from Eglon and all of Israel with him to Hebron, and they fought against it. And they took it and struck it with the edge of the sword, its king and all of its cities and all of the people who were in it. He left none remaining according to all that he had done to Eglon, but utterly destroyed it and all the people who were in it. Then Joshua returned and all of Israel with him to Debor, and they fought against it. And he took it and its king and all of its cities. They struck them with the edge of the sword and utterly destroyed all of the people who were in it. He left none remaining as he had done to Hebron. So he did it to Debor and its king, and he had done also to Lebnah and its king. So Joshua conquered all of the land and the mountain country and the south and the lowland and the wilderness slopes and all of their kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord God of Israel had commanded. And Joshua conquered them from Kadesh, Barneas, as far as Gaza, and all of the country of Goshen, even as far as Gibeon. All of these kings and their lands Joshua took at one time, because the Lord of God of Israel fought for Israel. And then Joshua returned all of Israel with him to the camp of Gilgal. Chapter 11. And it came to pass, when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard these things, that he had sent to Joab, king of Madon, to the king of Shimron, to the king of Akashot, and to the kings who were from the north, and in the mountains, and in the plain south of Shaniroth, and in the lowland, and in the heights of Doran of the west, to the Canaanites, and in the east, and in the west of the Amorite, the Hittite, the Persesite, the Jebusites, and the mountains, and the Hivite, and Hermon, and the land of Mizpah. So they went out, they all and their armies with them, as many people as the sand that is on the seashore in the multitude, with very many horses and chariots. And when all these kings had met together, they came and camped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. But the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time I will deliver all of them slain before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire." So Joshua and all the people of war with him came against them suddenly by the waters of Merom, and they attacked them. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Israel, who defeated them and chased them to greater Sidon, to the brook Misrapoth, and to the valley of Mizpah, eastward. They attacked them until they left none of them remaining. So Joshua did to them as the Lord had told him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. Joshua turned back at that time and took Hazor and struck its king with the sword, for Hazor was formerly the head of all those kingdoms. And they struck all the people who were in it, and with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them. There was none left breathing. And then he burned Hazor with the fire. So all the cities of those kings and all their kings Joshua took and struck with the edge of the sword. He utterly destroyed them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. But as for the cities that stood on their mounds, Israel burned none of them, except Hazor only, which Joshua burned. And all of the spoil of these cities and the livestock the children of Israel took as booty for themselves, but they struck every man with the edge of the sword until they all had destroyed them, and there were none left breathing. And as the Lord had commanded Moses his servant, so Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord had commanded Moses. Thus Joshua took all the land, the money, the mountain country, all of the south, all of the land of Goshen, the lowland and the Jordan plain, the mountains of Israel and its lowlands, from Mount Hilak and the ascent to Sehor, even as far as Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon below Mount Hermon. He captured all their kings and struck them down and killed them. Joshua made war a long time with all those kings, and there was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. All the others they took in battle. For it was of the Lord to harden their hearts, and that they should come against Israel in battle, and that he might utterly destroy them, and that they might receive no mercy, but that he might destroy them, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And at that time Joshua came and cut off the Anakim from the mountains, and from Hebron, and from Debor, from Anab, and from all of the mountains of Judah, and from all of the mountains of Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them with their cities. None of the Anakim were left in the land of the children of Israel. They remained only in Gaza and in Gath and in Ashdod. So Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord had said to Moses, and Joshua gave it as an inheritance to Israel according to their divisions by their tribes, and then land rested from war. And then the land rested from war. Chapter 12. These are the kings of the land whom the children of Israel defeated, and those who the land they did possessed on the other side of the Jordan toward the rising of the sun, and from the river Aron, the Mount Himram, and all of the eastern Jordan plain. One king was Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in the Heshbon and ruled half of Gilead, over Ararot, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and from the middle of that river, even as far as the river of Jabbok, which is the border of the Amorites, and the eastern Jordan plain from the sea of Chinneroth, as far as the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, the road of Bet-Shishmayah, and southward from the slopes of Pisgah. The other king was Og, king of Bashan, and his territory, who was the remnant of the giants, who dwelt at Ashurot and at Edrei, and reigned over Mount Hermon, over Salcah, over all of Bashan, as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Machayotites, and over half of Gilead, as to the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. These Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the children of Israel had conquered. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, had given it as a possession to the Reubenites and the Gadites and half of the tribe of Manasseh. And these are the kings of the country which Joshua and the children of Israel conquered on the side of the Jordan and on the west of Baalah Gad, in the valley of Lebanon, as far as the Mount Halak, and on the ascent of Seir, which is Joshua, gave the tribes of Israel as a possession according to their divisions. And in the mountain country, in the lowlands, and in the Jordan plain, and in the slopes, and in the wilderness, and in the south, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, the king of Jericho, one the king of Ai, which is beside Bethel, one the king of Jerusalem, one of the king of Hebron, one the king of Jarmut, one of the king of Lachish, one of the king of Eglon, one the king of Gersar, one the king of Debar, one the king of Jedor, one the king of Hormah, one the king of Arad, one the king of Labnah, one the king of Adullam, one of the king of Makadadu, and one the king of Bethel, one the king of Tapuah, and one the king of Hephar, one the king of Apak, one the king of Lashmar, and one the king of Madon, one the king of Harsor, one the king of Shimron, Minron, one the king of Ashimah, one the king of Tananach, and one the king of Medadah, one the king of Kedash, one of the king of Jokanoam in Carmel, and one the king of Dor in the heights of Dor, one the king of the peak of Gilead, one the king of Zerzah, and one the king. 31. I have read from you from the book of Joshua, chapters 10 through 12.